Hello, I'm Emma-Louise Coffey and you're welcome to the Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. On this week's episode, Jason Melbourne gives insight into his farming career to date, practices he has implemented to make gains to KPIs that drive farm profit, and his outlook for dairy farming in the future.
From Tremorne, County Waterford, and ever since I was younger I was always helping out my uncle on the farm, milking cows and feeding calves and just helping out every summer during holidays and all. And I knew that I had an interest in farming then, and I just wanted to pursue that and eventually get into cow ownership and farm my own right. So I knew that I'd have to go to Ag College and study agriculture. So I went to Gurteen College after school. I done 2 years there, done the level 5 in agriculture for the first year, and then the second year was level 6 in dairy herd management. Had a really good time there, just learnt a lot there, a lot of practical learning experience there in Gurteen, and I went on for the first placement was with David Curwen, outside Dungarvan, and just had a really good, went on really well with him. I started with him in 2015, so learned a lot about cows and grass with him and the spring calving system. And then for the second year, the dairy herd management, I done my placement with Brian Daniels in up in Piltown, Kilkenny. So I learned a lot about grassland management with Brian, and just grazing in general. He was very good that way. And then after the 2 years of that, I went on to apply for the Moorpark course.
So then, Jason, you took the step to, I suppose, do some further education in dairy, and you travelled to Moorpark for the level 7 course. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the placements involved in that course?
Yeah, so I went on to do the level 7 course in Moorpark. Just, I knew myself I need more experience on my belt, and that was the next stepping stone for me. So I went on and done first placement with Shane Maxwell in West Waterford. There was a 600 cow farm there, and loved it there. Learned a lot about grass and efficiencies and just working with big numbers. And then I had opportunity to do a foreign placement, so I went over to Missouri in the US, working for Gary Nolan and Niall Murphy. So that was really big learning experience for me, just how to manage cows in them extreme heats and weather conditions. And that was for a 6-month placement. And then I came back to Ireland in January of 2018, and I went on to the farm, work with Dennis Finnegan for my placement. I was here in Bellmacnoy Farm in Killavullen.
And you mentioned Missouri. That's something that sticks out, I guess, on your profile in terms of experience that you've completed. Traditionally, when people head abroad for placement, they're getting as far away from home as possible, in that they travel to New Zealand. Why Missouri?
Yeah, so I had a friend of a friend that knew Gary, and just it sounded interesting to me, just the way that grass was managed over there, and there was something different you usually hear of all the indoor systems. So just appealed to me that way, and it was really good to see just something different like that, with how to manage grass in 40-degree heat and during minus 20 degrees in the winter. So it was a good learning experience that way.
And you mentioned, you're now on the farm in Ballymacmoy. You're still here since you started your placement in January of 2018. We're on farm today, and for anyone listening intently, you can hear the hum of the compressor on the farm as we speak today. But tell us a little bit about the farm and how it has developed in your time here.
Yeah, so since 2018, there have been great improvements with efficiencies. Last year there was 17 tonne grown. Milk solids have gone from 390 to hopefully 470 sold for this year. Fertility's really improved as well. We were 60% 6-week calving rate in 2018. It was late winter, let's say December, that this farm was taken on previous, and there wasn't much early calving stock available, so there was bought what was available at the time. So went from a 60% 6-week calving rate in 2018 to 83% this year, and that's just been massive in milk solids as well, the early calving, and helped with the whole system.
So let's dig down a little bit into that, Jason. You've mentioned a lot of metrics, but I guess there are a lot of the key drivers of profit when we look at the spring system. You mentioned grass and you mentioned fertility. So if we focus first on the grass, you mentioned 17 tonnes grown in 2020. Probably an easier year to manage grass than the year we're currently working in. But, as grown is one thing, utilised is another. So what are you doing? What is most important on this farm to maximise the amount of that grass grown is utilised in the form of grazing by the cow?
Yeah, so we have an overall stocking rate of 2.7, including silage ground, and the stocking rate in the milking platform is 3.2. So that matches our growth rate with a target feeding rate of 600 kilos a meal. So we are utilising all that grass that way, and we've done a lot of reseeding since the start. Where as of the moment we have 90% of the farm reseeded since 2018, and P's and K's have been maintained as well, and pH. So that's helped a lot in growing to 17 tonnes last year.
And then looking to the specific seasons, 600 kilos is a very small amount of meal. And while a lot of us would say a target on farm might be 500 or 600 kilos, in reality, when we look across the year, it's actually often close to 800 or even the tonne. How do you manage the grass budget? Say, let's look at the season in its totality. So what do you do in the autumn in preparation for the springtime?
Yeah, so our biggest target would be spring grass, which would dictate breeding season and everything for the year that we would look into. So in the autumn, we would be looking at closing cover to have an open cover for February at the start of grazing. So we would close up at the target cover that we would have 1,200 of an average farm cover on the 1st of February. That's something we've done the last couple of years, and because of that, having that high average farm cover at the start of calving, the last 2 years we haven't had to feed any silage to any cow once they calve. So that makes a massive difference then for the cow, just getting that high quality feed into them.
And that 1,200 kilos of an opening cover on the 1st of February, how does that translate then? What do you close at in the autumn time, and typically what date is it?
Yeah, so it's been different the last couple of years. We have closed up the 1st of November, the second week of November. Just, it all depends on how we think growth rate is going to be, and just we try and predict the growth that's going to be over the winter, so that we will have that 1,200 average farm cover, because we have the results there of the previous growth rates through the winter that we can guess our opening cover.
And the 1,200, not to, I suppose, go on about it, but that's a lot of grass. And, there are some farmers that say, I'm going to open at 900 or 1,000, so that there's not too many heavy covers on the farm, that it'll all be used. I suppose you're at the balance that with that high cover, you're not feeding silage. I mean, talk through 2021. There was a few wet days this spring that people haven't yet forgotten about. How did you manage to get cows out in those conditions?
So, on-off grazing, most of February, March of every year. We have the infrastructure in place. We have the roadways, the water, use of spur roadways, multiple gaps off roadways, all those kind of things. And on off grazing, the 3 hours, we use that a lot throughout the whole spring, just until ground conditions allow. So by doing all that, we get through it no problem whatsoever. It's just the cows just know that the 3 hours they go out, they graze, and they come inside and into the cubicle.
To extend the grazing season then, if we flip the coin and look at the autumn, people do put in some silage and try and keep the cows out into November. Why are you prioritising spring over autumn for grazing?
Yeah, so I was trying to maximise return on our spring grass. So there is more of a return on that grass in the spring than the autumn, so we prioritise it that way. Obviously we try and keep out as long as we can the autumn, but if we think it's going to affect our opening cover, we just pull the plug early, so just that we have that grass in the spring.
So then looking and changing the focus to breeding, so you mentioned this was a new farm for you and Dennis and the team in the spring of 2018. You would have been one of the first employees to come onto the farm. Cows, I suppose, were sourced from multiple herds, not necessarily, I suppose, your pick of cows, but more so what cows were available. A 60% 6-week calving rate back then. So in a few short years, this year you had 83% 6-week calving rate. You moved from national average to top performance in a short period of time. How did you do that, Jason?
Targeting body condition score, number one. So starts back in the autumn. We body condition score everything, so that we know coming into the dry period when to dry off, and if there are 10 cows, give them a longer dry period. So we go, if the cow was 10, we go from a standard 8-week dry period to 12 weeks. And by doing that, allows us to put on the condition for calving. So the biggest thing for us is that the calve down the right condition, and minerals and the good quality silage throughout the winter. So, and then come into calving, let's say past breeding, we would do let's say 30 days out from the start of breeding, we would do another body condition score, and we'd scan the herd, whatever has calved. So we'd be constantly checking if cows were dirty or non-cycling. And any cows that were thinned in, we'd put on to once a day straight away until after breeding.
So the once a day for those late calvers and thin calvers, why is that important?
Yeah, is just to have them on the right body condition score at breeding, so that we have better conception rates. So we would do pre-breeding as well, and 3 weeks to the start of starting mate date, and whatever hasn't shown heat, then we'd scan them, and if they needed to, if they were non-cyclers or they were dirty, we'd clean them out and PG or whatever is needed, just to get them cycling and on the right body condition score. And what we've done the last 2 years is we've created a separate once a day herd. So any cows that have calved after the 1st of April or non-cyclers, and we've actually run them with a team of bulls for the first round of breeding, and we found that that's brought them on into heat sooner, and we've got them cows back in calf quicker as well.
So you're essentially, I guess, reducing that interval between calvings by management practices such as the once a day, and you mentioned the bull power in around the cows, and I suppose the enhancement that you've seen there in relation to cyclicity. If we look then to financials, Jason, is there a certain KPI that you target in this farm? Is there something that you're chasing in terms of costs and profit?
We tried to be as profitable as possible. We have good control on all our costs now, and the system is working now with the stocking rate and the grass grown, and our calving has come together. So been able to get our farm working expenses, including labour, down to €2.80 per kg milk solids. So very happy with that. The system is working now, and we're getting good return on our money now.
And I suppose for us that are hanging around in old money terms, have you an idea of what that would be in terms of cent per litre, Jason?
Yeah, I'd say it'd be 26, 27 cents. Yeah.
You've highlighted the key practices, from a farm perspective that, have made this farm work. But if we come back and pull things back to, I suppose, your career, you've highlighted your experience and the number of farms that you've worked on. And, in a very short space of time, you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different people who are, probably engaging in a similar enough system, but there's, I suppose, lots of different aspects that, individual farmers are doing really right that you've picked up on. But from your perspective, are there any things, maybe 2 or 3 things that you have done, to put yourself in a position to maximise your learning experience and create opportunities for yourself going forward in your career?
I'm from a farm background, but don't have a farm home. So to progress in the industry, I knew that I'd have to work with the best farmers and build a good reputation myself. And on top of that, have a good savings plan and good track record that once you do go to a bank, that they will accept a loan once they see that you have been saving and have a good track record and you have a good business plan.
So let's delve into that a little bit, Jason. The savings. For people listening today, in a similar situation to you, or maybe 5 years behind you, that savings plan, are you looking at apportioning a monthly direct debit out of your account or a standing order, or is it just kind of as you have a surplus that you'd portion that off into a savings account?
Yeah, so the easy thing I found was just to set up a savings account and just have a direct debit of that going in from your current account to that every month, and that way you'd be more disciplined to save.
Working with the right people, there's, I suppose, a different definition for the right person or the right farm based on preference and I guess ideals, farm size, where you want to go. What were the criteria that you saw as important in terms of the right people that you worked with?
I wanted someone that was given that opportunity that I was looking for was cow ownership, and that they were doing it profitably, and that there was the right opportunity for me to enter into. So I got in contact with Billy and Dennis, Green Solids, and they ticked all the boxes that way, and I was lucky enough that we worked well together and that the opportunity arose.
And you mentioned cow ownership, Jason, and often for people who are in the situation where they've no farm at home, cow ownership is something that is their idea of ownership within the dairy industry. For you, you're a little bit down the track in terms of 4 or 5 years out of your studies. Is that something that you wanted on day one, or is it a longer term project? Should people jump straight into cow ownership, or should they? Are there factors to consider?
Yeah, for myself, I was very keen in cow ownership, but everyone is different. There's loads of friends of mine that are managing and farms are very happy, and I wanted have cows of my own, so I knew to do that I'd have to work with the right people, have a good relationship with the bank, have a savings plan there, and be able to show that I could work well in the business, and the farm was profitable.
In terms of the points that you've taken that have really worked for you, is your good reputation. Is your reputation just, I suppose, your CV of who you've worked for, or is there anything else that you see makes you stand out from the crowd reputation-wise?
A good reputation is massive in the industry. That you work well with other people, that you're able to manage cows, manage grass well, that you're able to have a good positive mindset as well, and just get on the industry and do what's needed.
And Jason, as a young dairy farmer within the dairy sector, is this a positive industry to operate in now and into the future? And if we consider the future, where does that lie for you?
Yeah, so it's a huge positive industry to be involved with. Ever since 2015, with the cows being moved, there's been loads of opportunities and new farms taken on, and lots of young farmers that have got involved. For myself, it's been a huge stepping stone from just being a farm manager to being cow ownership to the 20% profit share. And it's a great lifestyle for everyone involved. I'm currently at the end of a 3-year contract, so it was just a medium term thing for me before, let's say, move closer to home, Waterford, Wexford, the southeast region. So I'm currently on the lookout for any opportunities in that region.
And I guess despite some of the limitations that exist in that part of the world at the moment, Jason, there is, I think, plenty of opportunities around every corner for young, ambitious farmers like yourself. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks, Emma-Louise.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Jason Melbourne for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. And for more information, go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma-Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.